this court, with the greatest respect to this court, cannot second guess, undermine, vary, amend, alter, whatever word you want to use, a judgment of the apex court. That I'm sure we agreed on, all of us. So that begs the following question. Is the order that is sought here consistent with the order of the Constitutional Court? If it is, then I'm wrong. But if the order that is sought here seeks in any way, small, tiny, minute, to alter what the Constitutional Court has said, then this court cannot do that. Now let's go to paragraph 139, the famous paragraph 139. I will show this court that I enjoyed the debate between the presiding judge and Mr. Mkari about whether, because I was also toying with this thing for so long, whether at particular points is the court talking about this report or talking about reports in general. It's a very interesting debate. And one of the shortcuts to it is if you go to the court order, you'll see in the court order where they used small letter P for panel.
Just hold on.
Again, not scientific, but if you go to the court order, the one which has the scratchings, Justice Defense, you'll find that at paragraph 7.
Yes.
So you'll see that they say, let's take paragraph 4, for example. It says, in the event that the panel concludes sufficient evidence does not exist, and so on, and then that's why they say they use the small letter P. But in paragraph 139, you see that they talk about the impeachment committee with capitals. That's just my shorthand. As I say, I'm not going to go to war over that. The point I want to make is at 139, which is the following. And thank God I won't go through the debate that the presiding judge had with Mr. Mkari. I'll use both, I'll assume both. Let's assume for a minute they're talking about this panel. And then also assume they're talking about any old panel. You'll see that what I'm going to say fits both. So this is what they say at 139. Where the panel concludes that sufficient evidence exists to disclose a prima facie case, its recommendation, underline this, that a Section 89 inquiry be proceeded with, must be implemented through a referral to an impeachment committee. Here are the big magic words. Unless and until the report is set aside on review. That's the end of this case. So what the Constitutional Court was doing here was to design, and I'm using shorthand because the judges will understand quicker. They were designing an eau de Graal rule, if you like, for these kinds of things. So they're saying, if the panel finds that there's sufficient evidence, then that report, as you said earlier, must be presumed to be valid unless and until it is set aside when? In the future somewhere. So what does that mean? It means the words until and unless, and I've never looked at words like that for such a long time. Yeah. Until, according to the Oxford Dictionary, means except, unless means except if, and until is about time. So until means, if this court says, I'm postponing this case, Mr. Mpofu, until the 1st of January 2027, I can't then come back and say I want it to be heard in November without altering that order. So if I want to vary the order, if I say I'm going to have anonymity and irreparable harm and what have you, I come back to the court and I say, court, I know you said we'll come back on the 1st of January 2027, but because for these reasons, can we do it earlier? Until that event happens, I am forced by reasons of section 165(5) of the Constitution to comply with the order. Or I can rescind it, or I can appeal it, or I can do whatever I want.
But now I do want to review.
Yes.
Say, for instance, the person says, look, I want to review it. But I've got now my review application
Yes.
that has been filed. But my review application is split into two, a
Yes.
part A and a part B. What's wrong with that?
A lot.
Oh,
A lot is wrong with that. Let me explain. I'm so happy about that question, because that's why I part ways with Mr. Mkari on this issue of, and there was a debate between you and him about whether that clause also prohibits the review. We don't argue that, at least not for now. I think it's quite tempting when I read Mr. Mkari's heads here. But we don't argue that. So we depart from the point of view that the president is entitled to review the report. Even now, I, as I say, on a serious note, I agree with Mr. Mkari's analysis about and so on. But before this court, we don't argue that. All we're saying that this court has no jurisdiction to do is to give interim relief pending that. Now let me explain, Justice Hansen, because this is the most important. This might well be the most important part of this case. If the order that you are asked to grant now is going to disturb this pronouncement that this thing is valid until it's set aside, not until you lodge an application for a review, not until you put a Part A application, not even until you get a judgment in the Part A application, no. Until it is set aside, in other words, until the outcome of Part B. And I have found overnight, and if I can just apologize to the court, I will only, my attorneys only made 3 copies, so I want to use, I'll hand it up after I've quoted it. There's a case of Tubular Holdings, LTD versus DBT, 2014 bracket 1 SA.
sorry,
2014, my lord. Bracket 1 SA 244 GSJ. GSJ, Gauteng, yes. And then the other one is Freeman NO. I will hand them up. And another versus Eskom Holdings, LTD 2010 ZAGP JHC 137. These cases, because I kept on saying to my learned juniors, there must be something about, because why am I so fascinated about this expression, unless and then until? And they kept on saying they can't find anything until they found these cases. This case, the Tubular Holdings one, my lord, says this is a judgment of the Gauteng court. And I'll just quickly go through paragraph 5. It says the essence of this dispute, it was a contractual dispute, of clause 20.4, I think of the arbitration clause or whatever. The applicant submits that the parties are required to give prompt effect to the decision of the DAB, which is binding unless and until it is set aside by agreement or arbitration following a notice of dissatisfaction whereas the respondent says that the mere giving of a notice of dissatisfaction undoes the effect of the decision. Exactly what is happening here. So there was a clause that says